Spider-Man is supposed to not only make sticking to a New York surface seem like a good thing,
Ew!
but also to make science look cool. But in his world, science would have been banned like since at least the 60s. Hear me out. Peter Parker is a massive nerd, and that's one of the best things about him. He gets his powers on a school trip, he builds his own web shooters, and he wins fights because he understands physics better than the grown-up in a rhino costume running face first at him. He can bench an SUV, but he'd rather defeat the bad guy with something he remembers from chemistry. He has the reflexes of a spider and the foolhardy bravery of a third grader correcting the teacher's grammar. Like I did on third grade in my first year of learning English. We're all nerds, let's face it.
You guys are losers.
Science made him the best superhero who can lift a car but not afford one. In my opinion, he'd actually have a decent chance running for the best fictional character of all time.
But you can't do this to me.
But the way they portray scientists in every story, it makes RFK Jr. look like a scientist. Spider-Man has spent over 60 years teaching kids that science is cool and being clever is cool, but if you do a postgraduate degree, you'll probably end up fighting a radioactive parkour orphan on top of a skyscraper. If a scientist in a Spider-Man story says, "We're very close to his boss," New Yorkers better start boarding up their windows. The Spider-Bite origin story isn't very scientific, but it isn't a huge issue for me. That's just because the puberty metaphor in a Cirque du Soleil costume was created at a time when radioactivity was the scary new thing and regular Joes didn't really know what it did. These days the whole concept sounds a little bit silly, and that's why the Amazing Spider-Man movies changed it to, I think it was gene manipulation, and the MCU just kind of skipped it. At least I hope no one leaves a Spider-Man film thinking,
Bite me.
the thing that I find weird is what these comic book writers think research looks like. They always put an emotionally unstable dude in a lab, have everyone tell him to stop, and then he injects himself with whatever ooze is glowing the brightest. And the result, every time, is a business casual Komodo, a billionaire dressed up like a Power Ranger on meth, or a middle-aged man edition of hentai.
Just be careful who you change into.
They make it look like the researchers are actively trying to get all science programs shut down. Imagine being a parent in the
New York City
of the world's stickiest teenager and signing a permission slip for a school field trip.
We can't do it, it's too sticky.
The form would ask about travel medication and allergies and if molecular destabilization is a problem. Please pack lunch, medication, and a distinguishing feature in case of cloning. Any child bitten by an exhibit will become property of Sony Pictures. I would want to know who's counting the spiders before and after the field trip visits, and if they're getting paid enough to do a really good job, and if any of the kids comes back home shooting lasers out of his eyes, I'm calling the principal. Of course, Spider-Man didn't invent the mad scientist. Frankenstein was doing this before electricity was reliable, but in Spider-Man, the trope is running as rampant as, well, the scientists. Half his villains have doctorates, and the other half was standing too close when a doctorate exploded. Now, obviously there's some selection bias at work here. We see the experiments that go wrong because the friendly neighborhood lab accident fighting a sensibly managed clinical trial would be a terrible film. The Daily Bugle wouldn't run the headline, "Local chemist completes uneventful titration." Titration. Thousands of Marvel Universe scientists probably finish work, publish the results, and go home without throwing a single buzz at bystanders. But there's a pretty obvious pattern. Every time they show as a scientist, we know what's gonna happen. In Spider-Man, doctor isn't a title, it's
foreshadowing.
A master's degree is like a supervillain learner's permit. I think one of the important points of the character of the property damage poster boy was to make science cool again. But in the stories, every other scientist grows a tail and attacks a school bus. With stories like this, it's almost like they want anti-vaxxers. If real science had a track record like that, all they let you do in a lab would be studying moldy bread under the supervision of an armed guard. And in 3 days that bread would probably still be standing on top of 30 Rock yelling about wanting revenge on... So as a parent, I would be checking which branch of science they are visiting. Genetics made Kurt Connors become his own animal testing. Physics gave us the man with the bowl cut and the murder tentacles. And electrical engineering crossed Jamie Foxx with a power socket. At this point, the Creationist Museum starts sounding pretty good for a school field trip. I think after like 3 respected professors turning into animals and attacking Manhattan, no politician would run on increasing research funding. They promised to send drone strikes to the Large Hadron Collider, and they'd have a point. If every big breakthrough ends with a giant monster leveling a few city blocks, being suspicious of science isn't anti-intellectual. But just to be clear, in this world, it still is. Because here's the thing, real science already has a defense against pretty much every Spider-Man villain. Other people. Because research is a group project. Other people will try to prove you wrong before regular people, the general public, has to dodge bits of buildings raining down from the sky. It can be a slow and annoying process.
Just give me a sec.
But it's also why the average doctoral thesis doesn't end with the author perched on the top of the Chrysler building laying eggs.
I'll tell you the problem with the scientific power that you're using here. It didn't require any discipline to attain it.
The boring procedures aren't separate from science. They are science. But that's useless for an action film. A committee meeting is a way harder sell to a movie studio or even a comic book editor than Alfred Molina throwing a hissy fit and a taxi. Okay, before we continue, I gotta do some hard selling of my own.
I'm in trouble.
This episode of Nerd Stuff is brought to you by me. No one else. I don't have a team. It's just me doing the research, writing the jokes. I edit, I design thumbnails and t-shirts all by myself, and all I ask in return is a like and subscribe. Maybe a nice comment if you're feeling frivolous. I also added a new t-shirt to the shop, and I really hope it's there by the time this video comes out, because Spreadshirt was having some problems with accepting new designs at this time. So check it out. If it isn't there, come back later and check it again. Anyway, back to the video. Before my kid can go on the field trip, I would like to know a few things. Does the lab have an independent safety officer? Can that person actually shut down the experiment if it's needed? What's the evacuation plan for green smoke or sky beams or any grown-up shouting, "You know how much I sacrificed?" Unfortunately, the idea of a brilliant man who shouldn't be slowed down didn't stay in the comic books. Tech companies turned it into a business philosophy.
Move fast and break things.
It sounds exciting if the thing you break is a button on a website. It's a bit less charming when the thing being broken is privacy, the entire economy, and the concept of artist. These trust fund tax evaders, who only have the courage to make omelets with other people's eggs, usually keep the profit, but everybody else gets the risk. Just like how Norman gets the military contract if the serum works, and if it doesn't, everyone nearby gets Norman. They call themselves disruptors, because an alpha nerd who decided the consequences are your problem doesn't exactly fit on a conference lanyard.
You don't take any responsibility.
Either Spider-Man got tech bros completely right, decades ahead, or the tech bros read Spider-Man as kids and got the point completely wrong. Okay, I'll sign the slip, but if the lead scientist has recently been divorced, fired, or laughed out of academia, the boss better turn around. Maybe my kid should just take the field trip to the visual effects studio instead. That would be safer. Except for, goddammit, Mysterio. Even Adobe After Effects has a body count in this universe. Guardrails don't get in the way of good research. Good research includes the guardrails. Peer review means your idea has to survive contact with other smart people before downtown New York has to survive your idea. The moral of a Spider-Man story isn't that power makes you good. You know damn well what it is. It's with great power comes terrible work-life balance. No, it's responsibility. And that should apply to a laboratory, a company, and a government just as much as it applies to a freelance photographer in a bodysock. Much like in the books, the real-world problems happen when the scientist or developer or founder is so rich and narcissistic that the people around him can't say no without losing their jobs. We need more people in the room who are allowed to say no, and at least one intern whose entire job is counting the spiders. Thanks for watching. Buy a shirt or a comedy special. The link is in the description, and it helps me out a lot. And of course, like, hype, and subscribe. Until next week, here are some videos that you should watch.
We'll meet again, Spider-Man!
Back off, man. I'm a scientist.